Strength through will is how we can reverse the perversion of values that have been instilled in you, in me, and all our brethren, insidiously through generations of ancestral oppression. Though it stood with as much superhuman endurance as anyone could, it left a deep impression. Invisible scars that have caused us to devolve into a state of unconsciousness so malignant, we've nearly forgotten we're not a problem to be solved. We always been the solution they seek to dissolve, with the illusion of ties that bind us to a system that blinds, of most vicious design, which is to free no man. Only together, through sharing of wisdom, can we heal the wounds of division, forever sealing that evil incision, and finally deprogram.
I caught up to the point to where you said you was talking about the I don't forgot now. I caught like the middle of it. I mean, I think you kept going, but I couldn't hear you.
Okay, I mean, I know you asked, the question that you asked was around what makes the African Social Party different from other organizations such as the Black Panthers and the Nation of Islam and those type of organizations.
And I heard where you gave the quote from Huey P. Newton, and you went to talk about how the religious side, and then you said to no end, and I heard all that.
Yeah. All right. So the thing is, you find most organizations don't really have theory. You know, they don't have theory, so they borrow theory from, oftentimes even from the colonizer itself. So you have them, you know, struggling around colonial narratives and understanding of even summing us up. So even when people go more radical, or like, I'll give you an example, like the concept of like Black Lives Matter, you know what I'm saying? When you ask that question, you know, the first thing when I saw that was along the lines of, you had I Am a Man back in the 50s, you know, men walking around with big old poster boards saying I am a man. Well, the question becomes like, who the hell are you talking to? You know what I'm saying? Because are you trying to convince yourself, or are you trying to convince the people that then defined you as something less than a man, or that your life don't matter? Either way, you done conceded to their definition, which puts you in a place that even if you won that argument, you only what they have defined you as opposed to what you really are. You know, so that's why we even put forth the Black Power matters. So, but that comes from a lack of theory. And so, you know, African People's Social Party has a theory of African internationalism that works in the best interest of the African working class. So if you're using the colonizer's theory, most times, you know, it's going to work in the interest of the colonizer. So we're able to understand that and sum that up. So we don't fight racism, we fight colonialism. We don't try to convince somebody that we matter or not. We say the Black Power matters, and we have to, the struggle is for power. It's not what they think. It's that we got to develop the power to ensure that they can't do anything to us, no matter what they think. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be able to do that. And so this is what separates us from everybody else, is that one, we have our own theory. Two, we have practical programs that that can apply our theory and advance us from where we at to where we're trying to go, which is self-government and power over our own lives and over our own resources, human and natural.
Okay, so for those who don't,
and you'll find a lot of times people don't have it to what end. So you got people that do a lot of good work sometimes, but it's like, to what end? What are you really trying to accomplish? You know what I'm saying? We're not trying to be fit into your society in any kind of way. We want control of our own stuff and have power over our own lives.
So to the people who don't know, explain or give the definition of colonialism.
Yeah, right on. And it's, that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight in our political education session, and a clear definition of what colonialism is the foreign domination is the foreign domination and exploitation of a nation or people for the social, political, and economic benefit of the oppressor nation and people. Yeah, that's a clear-cut definition of what colonialism is. So it's somebody, it's one nation overtaking your resources, human and natural, for their benefit. So it's like me coming in, it's like somebody coming into your house and using all your resources to get their family full at your expense.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So I'm guessing.
Well, I want to say this too, though, because that's what we fight. Okay. Now, what they put out there is to fight racism, but racism is nothing more than the ideas that's in white people's head. You know what I'm saying? Because I know, and everybody that we can think of knows somebody that don't like them, but nobody cares about that. I don't care who don't like me or who like me. It don't even matter. You know what I'm saying? The problem becomes when you got the power to prevent me from living my best life because of what you think in your head. Yeah. So we need power. We don't need to try to convince them something one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Because I tell people all the time, even with you spoke on the system earlier, I tell people, why are you so concerned with being a part of this system when, according to the United States, it's on record that we're still 3/5 of a human being and things of that nature. And then slavery wasn't ended. It was just reversed to where they say, okay, now we're going to tell you you're free in this regard, but we're going to give black codes or black laws or slave codes to re-enslave you another way. So, like, I'm with you on that, man, when you say y'all fighting against the system. And people always ask me, well, what are we going to do if we're not a part of this system? So, being that y'all are combating the system, how would you answer that question? What should we do if we're trying to come out of this system?
We got to create our own system. I mean, it's the same struggle that been plaguing African people for ages. You know, Harriet Tubman dealt with the same question. You know what I'm saying? You know, and part of the contradiction is, you know, one thing that she said was that, you know, I freed hundreds and hundreds of enslaved African people, and I could have freed more if they knew they were slaves. But the reality is that, you know, when she charted out on that course for freedom, you didn't know how you was going to eat. You didn't know where you was going to sleep. You didn't know when you could have rest. You know what I'm saying? But if you wake up on a plantation tomorrow, at least you know you got, you know, food, clothes, and shelter, and you're going to eat something, no matter how bad they treat you. But the reality is that as long as you stay on that plantation and within that system of slavery, you can never be free or even know what freedom is. And part of freedom is responsibility. So now you are responsible for how you're going to eat. You are responsible for how you're going to clothe yourself. You're responsible for these things. But if you work to gain your freedom in that way, you know, then, you know, you create a world that is not only more just for you and more humane for humankind. You know, it also gives you the ability to plan a future that you can guarantee that your kids and your kids' kids are gonna be able to be the best that they can be. Under this colonial system, you know, we don't even know if our children gonna die at a stoplight. You know what I'm saying? We don't know if our children gonna die at a graduation party. We don't know if our children, you know, gonna die from going to the grocery store or just trying to, you know what I'm saying, just trying to walk down the street to go get a tea and a Skittle. You know what I'm saying? Or even on the playground playing with a toy gun. We don't know. So we don't even have a future. Not only do we not have a future, they don't even have a future in this system. And this is the crisis that they find themselves in. But we can use our own hands to guarantee that we're gonna create a society where our kids are gonna be guaranteed a real future.
Okay. So I'm gonna play quote unquote devil's advocate for a second, just for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So what would, being that you are for the African people, what would be the things put in place to help the African people kind of shed the hate that we've developed under this system?
What do you mean by hate?
Okay, you got your Crips, you got your Bloods, you got most of us have been taught in this system to be at each other's throat. So how can we get rid of that? Or I ain't gonna say, go ahead.
Now, part of that is what we call horizontal violence, right? And horizontal violence is the violence that we commit amongst each other on the same playing field. But we have to understand that horizontal violence was even created by vertical violence. Vertical violence is the violence that comes from the state, that comes from, the government. And the government creates a condition where, we have to fight each other for crumbs in order for us to survive. So if you give a different future and a different narrative, a lot of those, I'm gonna give you an example of I don't know if they call that a riddle. Oh shoot! If they call that a riddle, or can you get some? I just wasted this. Some of this. I don't know if they call that a riddle or but they say it's like crabs in a barrel or crabs in a bucket is what they say. You know what I'm saying? But the real contradiction is not what the crabs are doing to each other. That's not the real contradiction. The real contradiction is who in the hell put the crabs in the bucket in the first place. You know what I'm saying? So whoever put the crabs in the bucket created a condition where now for the basic survival of the crabs, they have to fight each other. You know what I'm saying? For their basic survival. Because you take those same crabs and put them on a beach in a natural habitat, what do those crabs do?
They at peace and they are minding their business.
They work together. They don't bother each other in that way. You know what I'm saying? But you force them to be in a certain type of environment, and you create a situation where now for their basic survival they have to attack each other, and that's what the system has done. It has taken all our resources from us and put us in this unnatural position where we fighting over crumbs. We fighting over crumbs that belong to us, you know what I'm saying? And this is the contradiction. So the real issue is to overturn colonialism and overturn the vertical violence to be able to address the horizontal piece by itself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'm gonna piggyback on what you just stated. And people who really want to find out how deep this goes, if you study HUD and how they came up with the housing projects, the development, they was developed to keep the crime in certain areas so that we would be all linked together. That would be like the pot. And it would create an environment to where we would kill each other. So that's just piggybacking off your answer.
Yeah. And even colonialism, you know what I'm saying? They created they kidnapped African people, brought them and dispersed them all throughout the world, dispersed us all throughout the world. And then you got on top of that, they colonized the whole world and started coming up with these artificial borders and artificial names, and then started to call people these different names like African American or Haitian or Jamaican or Ghanaian, all these different names that people want this before. And you look at even the land that we own right now in the U.S. How the hell you commit mass genocide against the indigenous people, and even though they was here yesterday, you push them back and draw a line and say, even though you was here yesterday, this is, now this is Mexico and this is New Mexico. So if you come across this line that we just drew, now you're an illegal immigrant. That don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? But those borders, if you internalize those borders and go along with the narrative that they present, then you don't even see yourself as the same, even though you was the same yesterday. And so now you start fighting within those borders that they have created, which creates a condition that works in their best interest. Is divide and conquer, you know what I'm saying? And we got to destroy these artificial borders and right the wrong that they have created against humanity. You know what I'm saying? It's the only way forward, you know, because since this colonialism, it works in the best interest for white people at the expense of everybody else in the world.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So what is the difference? Because I seen on your page, African internationalism. What's the difference between that and pan-Africanism?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. But I'll say one of the some of the key components to the difference between African internationalism and pan-Africanism is one, pan-Africanism doesn't address what we call the class question. And the class question means, like in this society, you got your ruling class, your middle class, and then you got the working class. The majority of the people are the working class. That's where all the commodities are. Appreciate that. That's where all the commodities and everything is transformed through the workers. You know what I'm saying? And the ruling class are the people that's in power, and they set the laws. And really, the law is nothing more than the opinion of the people in power. And then you got the state that enforces the laws of the people in power. And Pan-Africanism don't even address any of that. You know what I'm saying? And in fact, Pan-Africanism came into existence to attack the Garvey movement. And attacking the Garvey movement, you know, they attempted to organize the middle class and people that had aspirations to survive within the system. They began to attack the Garvey movement, and the Garvey movement. And Garvey would say that he was never a Pan-Africanist. And Du Bois, who is considered the father of Pan-Africanism, you know, say that Garvey was not a Pan-Africanist. Garvey said he was an African fundamentalist. But somehow, now, when you get the story, it's all eclectic, and people try to make Garvey a Pan-Africanist, and then they try to use Garvey's flag, because Garvey and the UNIA is the one came up with the red, black, and green flag, and people try to say that this is a Pan-African flag, but it's not a Pan-African flag. It's an African fundamentalist flag that Garvey created because he didn't see any flag the African people could pledge. But they won't deal with this and give a proper assessment of Pan-Africanism or be able to address the difference between Pan-Africanism and African internationalism. And so that's why you'll find, and I'm gonna say this too, because if you got some working class person and a middle class person, you know, in the same organization, they have two material different interests. And so, you know, the middle class and sometimes the ruling class will use the middle class as a way to attack the working class. Because the working class the working class catching all types of hell every single day. You know what I'm saying? But they would use the middle class forces like Al Sharpton, forces like Jesse Jackson to come in and always tell you, you know, take your beatings in peace. But the working class, like, hell no, you know what I'm saying? We're going to fight back. We're going to resist, you know, this type of brutality. But they would try to use them as a way to prevent you from fighting back. Just be peaceful with your, and they'll even try to say stuff like, you know, we need peace. Well, peace stop when you start shooting me. You know what I'm saying? So now I got a right to resist that. Peace stop when you got your knee on my neck. You know what I'm saying? I have a right to resist that. And the African working class may understand that, but they would try to use these middle class forces to change that. So the middle class has an interest in things being what they call the status quo, or being not trying to rock the boat too much, because they benefit from that. The working class don't benefit from that. So we say the revolution has to be led by the African working class, because the African working class is the only social force in this society that has a material interest in overturning the whole system. The middle class has an interest in things being the same. They just want a bigger piece of the pie. You know what I'm saying? But we saying no. It has to be led by the African working class. And that was a guy, Amilcar Cabral, who said that, you know, people, the middle class is people in the middle class that may have the ability to commit class suicide, but the middle class itself cannot betray its interest within its social structure. Pan-Africanism don't deal with any of that. So it leaves people with ideas that cannot forward you, and then they put all this stuff together without explaining the differences. So people think that being a Pan-African is for African people, but it's in the interest of the African working, is in the interest of the system itself. And African internationalism say that we are the advanced attachment of the African working class, and we have an interest in the African working class coming to power, and not to try to get a bigger piece of this pie. We want all our shit back, and we want all of it, and we want to overturn the contradiction in order for us to advance the revolution and the interest of the African working class. And so we say that we are the 21st century version of African fundamentalism, which is what Garvey was.
Okay, so let me ask
and what they also don't say, the boys, the boys worked with the CIA. He worked with the CIA to sell Garvey bad ships, and that's how they began to sink the Black Star Line. It was Garvey who organized the African workers all over the world, and the boys detest that. He worked with the CIA to undermine Garvey, and in fact, the first Black FBI agent was hired to infiltrate the Garvey movement, to try to destroy the Garvey movement from the inside. Garvey laid the blueprint, and the Uhuru movement is actually, you know, a continuation of the Marcus Garvey work. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why we say we have to build what we call dual and contending power. We have to fight this system on every front, but simultaneously we have to be able to build our own infrastructure for us to begin to organize ourselves under one government, under one movement, and not just protest, but with protest, you have to do that, but you also have to build your own capacity to meet your own needs.
So my next question would be, since you stated that Du Bois was a Pan-African and Marcus Garvey